The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan.
This One's Wife, episode 1.5. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing to dissect the opening episode of This One's Wife's new series for her lifestyle brand, where she plays a domestic goddess operating within a narcissistic bubble, unable to relate to anything of what ordinary people go through, but thinking that she is oh so relatable. Before we get back to the bees, it's been something that I've noticed that already in this opening episode, there's some blatant plagiarism by This One's Wife. We know that This One's Wife copies. It's because she's empty. It's because she's vacuous. It's part of the character trait acquisition, which is a prime aim of her narcissism. And the pasta recipe that I have been talking about in the previous episode was actually invented by British cook Anna Jones. It's in her book, A Modern Way to Cook. It's been copied wholesale by This One's Wife. She's cooked in exactly the same pan that's used in the picture in the book, utilising exactly the same ingredients and the method of cooking it, and did not attribute it to Anna Jones in the slightest. This One's Wife is not a cook, she is a charlatan. She demonstrates that she doesn't look particularly good at it, that she has no ingenuity of her own, no thought process to change things, to shake them up. She simply takes from other people and puts it all together, thinking that this is how she becomes the hostess with the mostess. So I thought it'd be useful just to make that point in relation to her first episode, which contains a great big chunk of plagiarism from the beginning. Now, let's get back to the bees. Well, we're back to the bees. We're back to Brendan the beekeeper. What's clear is Brendan is the one that does all of the work. He's the one that tends to the bees all year round. This One's Wife has probably only ever had any involvement with him for the purposes of shooting this programme. She doesn't tend to the bees. She doesn't know how to beekeep. She basically has found a beekeeper who is open to being paid some money for the purposes of appearing in this series. Brendan seems like a good sort to me. He seems quite laid back. He looks after the bees, which are naturally important for the environment. But unfortunately for him, a parasite has come along. Doesn't look like it's going to threaten his bees, but it's certainly making use of him. We see This One's Wife as she turns up and collects the honey by scraping it out so the liquid oozes. I understand that she's rather good with getting liquids to ooze out of things. And This One's Wife explains, you know what's so ironic about it? I've never liked honey. Well, how about that? Apparently it was too sweet. But now, because of this process, I just appreciate it so much. Isn't that good to know? The honey's tasted. This One's Wife scooping some up and sticking it in her mouth. Ditto, Brendan's invited to do so. Next, the question posed is what to do with the beeswax that's been collected. Well, This One's Wife has a novel idea. Candles. Brendan informs her that it actually purifies the air. This One's Wife looks at him like she's just been given the cure for cancer. What a major revelation that is for her. Of course, there needs to be a hug. So a hug ensues as This One's Wife once again utilises the physical assertion of control over a non-intimate secondary source by hugging him. It's unnecessary, but after all, This One's Wife is a hugger. She then comments, so cool, amazing, with all the enthusiasm of someone being led to the gallows. There's no feeling in it at all. Thus, that's Brendan's contribution. It would have been interesting to hear a bit more about the process of beekeeping, perhaps telling people about the process of how honey is actually made, the time it takes, what needs to be done to look after the bees, the threat that bees find themselves subjected to. After all, supposedly This One's Wife is a conscious environmentalist. But then, if it's Brendan talking about the bees because he's the one with the knowledge, it's not about This One's Wife. And as you know, everything has to be about This One's Wife. Accordingly, we don't get to actually find out anything particularly interesting with regard to the process. We just see This One's Wife gathering some honey. It's a little bit like that throughout the whole show. Here she is with some flowers. Here she is with the sea salt. Here she is with the Epsom salts. Here she is with the honey. Here she is with the beeswax. Here she is with the truffle. Now it's back to Daniel. It's time to make some candles. This one's wife explains, we have our instructions, but I think we've got this, which once again demonstrates that this one's wife has probably never, ever made candles prior to this show. So much for her alleging that she enjoys crafting. She's had to get instructions on how to do it, because with so much that is quite clear in this show, she doesn't know how to do it naturally, i.e. it's not practiced with her. Daniel admits that he's never touched beeswax. It's good to know. This one's wife informs us, you can get wax from your local beekeeper. Shit me, I thought you just took it out of your ear, or that you found a bee and you got it out of a bee's ear. Fascinating that you can get beeswax from your local beekeeper, which is, of course, precisely what she's just done. This one's wife then takes us through the process and temperatures for cooking, or melting rather, the beeswax. It's done in a way where she's just basically repeating what she's read rather than reeling it off like someone who's an accomplished candle maker. She tells us that apparently beeswax smells of honey. For the life of me, I can't fathom out why that would be. If you've any idea why that could be, dear valuable viewers, please let me know. After all, bees make honey which also has beeswax in it, which then smells of honey. Astonishing. This one's wife then chastises Daniel for he's looking in the beeswax in a way that apparently he looks at the same way as cheese. And she tells him, it's not cheese, it's not parmesan. Yeah, I suspect that you think it's cheese, this one's wife, and you're just projecting onto poor old Daniel. Next, the essential oils are wheeled out. This one's wife again suggests lavender. She's so unimaginative. But Daniel admits that his allergies have been going bonkers, and therefore he wants eucalyptus, honey, rosemary and peppermint. At long last, this one's wife brings mint into the equation by explaining to us some nice fresh mint. It doesn't seem to elevate the candles though, which is hugely disappointing. She tells us that rosemary is nice and grounding, and she makes some weird hand gesture as if she's gesticulating as part of casting a spell. Maybe we now learn that this one's wife is not so much a wizard in the kitchen, but a witch. Dan jizzes his pants, sniffing the various oils, getting very excited about the various olfactory onslaught that he's experiencing. This one's wife then heads over to a handily placed shelf to find some candle vessels, which she happens to have some handily placed, like everybody does in their home. Daniel admits that he's never seen a candle wick not in a candle before. It's all learning for him. He admits that's so pretty, and this one's wife remarks, now we're talking turkey. I thought you were doing candles, not turkey. I'm confused. She explains it's like the Amazing Race of candles. I think the Amazing Race is some kind of show, not that something I've seen. Daniel then expresses surprise that it takes 3 to 4 hours for a candle to dry out. I think the word set is what you're looking for. We're then told that while the candles dry, surely set, it's time to make a beautiful cake. This one's wife admits that she baked the cake in advance. In other words, somebody else has done it once again. Brendan the beekeeper does the heavy lifting for the honey. That somebody else's recipe is stolen for the spaghetti dish that she made earlier, and we don't get to see her telling us about the appropriate ingredients or sourcing those ingredients, because that would just mean popping down the shops and isn't as visually as exciting, at least she thinks, as going and getting honey from somebody else's apiary. No, so we don't see the ingredients, we don't see her mixing, we don't see her putting her hand up to her brow and moving away icing sugar or flour. No, none of that. We don't see her involved in the science of baking, because remember, baking is a science. You need to be exact about it. So it's been left to somebody else, a little bit like when she had other people in Australia make the banana cake for her, the banana bread. And what she says is they're going to do the decorating. This typifies this one's wife. Somebody else does the spade work and she comes along and does all of the fun bits, the decorative bits, the frilly bits. This one's wife explains, we'll have by the end of the day candles for you to go home with. Daniel says plaintively, "I don't want to go home. I want to go to my cottage at your house." But he doesn't have a choice in the matter, because this one's wife is guiding him out of the door as they're going to make a honey lemon cake. So we've learned nothing about the process of beekeeping other than this one's wife has collected honey. We've learned also that beeswax smells of honey astonishing. We've also learned about how to make a candle, although all that this one's wife has done is look up how to make a candle on the internet and copy it. We've also learned that she's plagiarised somebody else's recipe, and we've learned that Daniel is very enthusiastic when it comes to sniffing essential oils. They do show a little bit more excitement when it comes to the creation of the candles, and there is a little more chemistry between the two of them, but it's not particularly interesting viewing again. It's watching two individuals in a kitchen making candles, but it's done in such a methodical fashion that you can tell it just doesn't come naturally to this one's wife. It's basically taking a person who isn't a cook, isn't a candle maker, isn't somebody who's a beekeeper, who then is pretending that she does all of these things. But it's quite obvious to anybody watching, she's not experienced at these things like she pretends that she is. She just does these things according to a system that has been detailed to her, and it's obvious. She, of course, won't pick up on this, but I do, and others will. Well, next, it's the honey lemon cake, and we must surely be approaching the home straight by now. So hang in there, and we'll almost be at the end of episode 1.